They thought removing humanity would bring them peace instead. They discovered that the galaxy's greatest predators had been its protectors, and now something far worse was coming from the void between stars. 3 standard galactic cycles had passed since the Great Departure. The human fleet had vanished beyond the rim of known space, leaving behind only empty colonies and a galaxy that suddenly felt far too quiet. The vast council chambers of the Galactic Senate buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 species gathered for what many considered the most critical session in millennia. Ambassador Vex High of the Eltarian Confederacy stood at the central podium, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's ambient light into anxious patterns. The holographic displays around her showed economic data that painted a picture none of them wanted to acknowledge. Behind her, the massive view screen displayed the last known trajectory of the human Exodus fleet, a stream of 10,000 ships, disappearing into the void between galaxies. Honored delegates, Vex High began, her voice carrying through the translation matrix to reach every species in their native tongue. We gather today not in celebration of our independence, but in growing concern over our survival. The economic projections are troubling. Without human innovation and trade partnerships, 17 sectors report declining productivity. The Kepler Mining Consortium has seen a 40% drop in efficiency since losing access to human engineering solutions from the Granite platform, reserved for silicon-based life forms. Council member Zorth's voice rumbled like an avalanche. Efficiency drops can be compensated for. We managed perfectly well before the humans arrived 2 centuries ago. Perhaps this departure will remind us of our own capabilities. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their environmental suits and breathing apparatus. They all remembered the galaxy before humanity's arrival, but none of them wanted to return to it. Dr. Kellever, the Trilaxian head of Galactic Economic Forecasting, activated her hovering data display. Charts and graphs materialized in the air above the assembly, each one more damning than the last. Her tentacles moved in patterns that her species used to convey deep distress. Council member Zorth speaks of our past capabilities. Kellever sighed, her voice carrying the wet, gurgling tones of her aquatic species. But this analysis shows the stark reality. In the 2 centuries since human integration, our collective technological advancement increased by 3,000%. Our medical capabilities expanded beyond recognition. Our agricultural yields multiplied by factors we once thought impossible. She manipulated the display, showing colony after colony that had thrived under human partnership. But more concerning than our technological dependence is our demographic crisis. Human colonies served as neutral meeting grounds for species that couldn't share the same environments. Without these diplomatic hubs, we're already seeing the first signs of renewed territorial disputes. Ambassador Theckener of the Hive Collective raised one of his forearms. His insectoid features remained expressionless, but his pheromone emissions told a different story to those who could detect them. There is something else the Council must know. Our deep space monitoring stations detected something 3 days ago. We have been reluctant to share this information. The chamber erupted in chittering, growling, and electronic protests. Vex High struck the resonance gong, its harmonic frequencies cutting through the cacophony. The floor recognizes Ambassador Theckener. Please share what the Hive has discovered. Theckener's mandibles clicked nervously. Our sensors detected a massive gravitational anomaly in the direction the human fleet departed. The readings are unprecedented. Whatever the humans are building out there, it's on a scale that defies our understanding of engineering. The energy signatures suggest they're constructing something the size of a small moon. 3 months after Theckener's revelation, the first real crisis hit. The Vardonian trade route, a crucial supply line that connected 12 systems, came under attack by the Crimson Raiders, a pirate organization that had been dormant for decades. Without human patrol fleets and their impossibly fast response times, the raiders struck with impunity. Admiral Kekstar of the Combined Fleet received the distress call in his flagship's command center. The scaled reptilian commander had fought alongside humans in the border wars, and their absence felt like losing half his tactical options. His tactical display showed 3 merchant vessels under attack, their shields failing rapidly. Time to intercept, Kekstar hissed to his navigation officer. 14 hours at maximum burn. Admiral, came the reply. Kekstar's claws scraped against his command chair. A human rapid response team would have been there in 4 hours. Their slip space drives could bend reality in ways that still amazed the galaxy's physicists, but those ships were gone, disappeared into the void with their crews. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a coded transmission. It's on human emergency frequencies. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew those frequencies had been officially deactivated after the departure. Kekstar's hearts, all 3 of them, began beating faster. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unmistakably human, though distorted by distance and interference. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiance. We're transmitting from beyond the galactic rim. Consider this message a final gift to our former allies. We've been monitoring Galactic Council communications, and we know about the Crimson Raiders. A new display materialized showing the exact location of the pirate fleet. The tactical data was more precise than anything the Council's sensors could provide. The Raiders are using an old asteroid field as their base. Coordinates are attached. We won't be coming back to help, but we're not heartless. Chen out. The successful raid on the Crimson Raiders base should have been a victory, but it only deepened the Council's unease. How had the humans monitored their communications from beyond the galaxy's edge? What technology allowed them to track pirate movements across thousands of light years? 6 months later, the answers began to emerge in the most unexpected way. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a human xenobiologist who had chosen to remain behind to continue her research, requested an emergency meeting with the Council's Science Division. She had been living quietly on Research Station Omega, studying deep space microorganisms, but her latest discovery changed everything. I've been analyzing samples from the edge of our galaxy, Dr. Vasquez explained to the assembled scientists. Her human features looked tired, aged by stress and isolation. She was one of only 300 humans who had stayed behind. What I found defies explanation by conventional science. She activated her data display, showing microscopic organisms that seemed to phase in and out of visible reality. These aren't natural microbes. They're artificial constructs, nanoscale machines designed to monitor and report. They're everywhere, gentlemen, every star system, every planet, every ship. The humans didn't just leave monitoring devices when they departed. They left an entire invisible network. The implications hit the assembled scientists like a meteor strike. Ambassador Vexhai, who had been observing the presentation, felt her crystalline structure resonating with frequencies. She didn't recognize the physical manifestation of existential dread. Are you suggesting, Vexhai asked slowly, that humanity has been watching us this entire time? Dr. Vasquez nodded grimly. Not just watching. These nanomachines are capable of data transmission across impossible distances. They're using quantum entanglement principles that our physicists consider theoretical. The human fleet may have left our galaxy, but they never really left us. 1 year after the Great Departure, as the Galactic Council struggled with increasing pirate attacks, resource shortages, and renewed species conflicts, every communication device in known space simultaneously activated. The signal came from everywhere and nowhere, transmitted through the invisible network of nanomachines that humanity had left behind. The face that appeared on screens across the galaxy was weathered but familiar. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez had served as humanity's primary liaison to the Galactic Council for 15 years before the departure. His salt-tan pepper beard was now entirely gray, and new lines creased his face, but his eyes held the same intensity that had made him a legend in diplomatic circles. People of the galaxy, Admiral Rodriguez began, his voice carrying across light years through technology that shouldn't exist. I know you're struggling. We've been watching, and despite our departure, We still consider you our neighbors, but you made your choice when you voted to restrict our expansion and limit our influence. You chose to see us as a threat rather than partners. The image shifted to show the massive construction project that had been detected months earlier. It wasn't a moon, it was something far more impressive and terrifying. Artificial world, but not just any world. It was a Dyson sphere under construction, surrounding a carefully controlled artificial star. The scale was beyond anything the galaxy had ever conceived. We're building something new out here, Rodriguez continued. A civilization unrestricted by the fears and limitations that held us back in the Milky Way. We've made contact with intelligences from other galaxies, species that see potential where you saw threat. But we haven't forgotten our roots entirely. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. The monitoring network we left behind will remain active for one more standard year. During that time, we'll continue to provide tactical intelligence about genuine threat spirits, rogue AI systems, and the like. Consider it our farewell gift. But after that year passes, you'll be truly on your own. As the promised year drew to a close, the galaxy had changed dramatically. The Galactic Council's authority had weakened as member species began forming smaller alliances, unable to maintain unity without human mediation. The Altarian Confederacy allied with the Silicon Collective. The Hive formed a mutual defense pact with 3 neighboring systems. The careful balance that humanity had helped maintain for 2 centuries was crumbling. Ambassador Vex High stood once again at the central podium, but this time addressing a half-empty chamber. Many species had recalled their representatives to focus on local concerns. The holographic displays now showed a galaxy in decline, trade routes abandoned, colonies struggling with resource shortages, and worst of all, the return of species-based conflicts that hadn't been seen in generations. The human monitoring network goes silent in 72 hours, Vex High announced to the remaining delegates. Our intelligence services estimate that we'll lose approximately 60% of our deep space surveillance capabilities. The early warning system that has protected us from external threats will be gone. Council member Zorth, whose earlier optimism had long since faded, rumbled from his granite platform. Perhaps it's time to admit our mistake. The vote to restrict human expansion was based on fear, not wisdom. We saw their rapid growth and assumed malicious intent, when we should have seen opportunity. Dr. Kelliver's tentacles writhed in patterns of deep regret. Our economic models now show complete systemic collapse within 2 decades without human innovation. We've become dependent not just on their technology, but on their ability to see solutions where we see only problems. As if summoned by their despair, every communication device in the chamber activated simultaneously. But this wasn't Admiral Rodriguez's weathered face that appeared. It was a young human woman, perhaps in her 30s, with the kind of confident expression that had made humanity famous throughout the galaxy. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said with a slight smile. "I'm Director Sarah Kim, and I represent the New Humanity Collective. We've been monitoring your discussions, and we have a proposition." Director Kim's image was crystal clear despite being transmitted from another galaxy. Behind her, glimpses of the artificial world showed massive cities with architecture that blended the best of 40 different species designs. It was clear that humanity hadn't been alone in their new home. "We've learned much in our time beyond your galaxy," Kim continued. "We've encountered 17 different galactic civilizations, each with their own challenges, their own potential. What we've discovered is that the pattern we experienced in the Milky Way ain't unique. Young, dynamic species often face the same fear-based restrictions from their more established neighbors." She gestured, and the display shifted to show a thriving multi-species civilization. Ships of dozens of different designs shared space lanes, and planets showed the diverse architecture of successful integration. "We've built something remarkable out here. A true galactic confederation where species are judged by their contributions, not their potential threats." Ambassador Vex High found her voice. "Are you offering us a chance to join you?" Kim's expression grew serious. Not exactly. What we're offering is a choice. In 72 hours, our monitoring network goes dark permanently. At that moment, the Milky Way galaxy will be truly independent. You'll face your challenges without our safety net, without our innovations, without our solutions to problems you haven't even recognized yet. The chamber was absolutely silent. Every remaining delegate hung on her words. But, Kim continued, we're also extending an invitation, not to your governments, not to your councils or confederations. We're speaking directly to individuals, any person, of any species, who wants to join us in building something greater than what the Milky Way has become, will be welcome. We're sending coordinates for rendezvous points at the galactic rim. The choice is yours. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of Kim's transmission, ships began launching from every inhabited system in the galaxy. They weren't military vessels or official expeditions, they were civilians, scientists, engineers, doctors, artists, and dreamers who had grown tired of a galaxy content with stagnation. Dr. Kellever was among the first to leave, her research vessel packed with volunteers from 6 different species. The economic models were clear. She transmitted to her former colleagues. The Milky Way's best days are behind it. But maybe, just maybe, we can be part of something greater. Even some government officials began to defect. Admiral Kekstar arrived at the rendezvous point with a small fleet of military vessels, their crews having voted unanimously to join the exodus. Humans taught us that sometimes you have to leave everything behind to find where you truly belong. He explained in his final transmission to Galactic Command. The most surprising departure came from the Hive Collective. Ambassador Theckener led an entire swarm of ships toward the rendezvous coordinates, taking with him nearly 10% of his species' population. The Hive has decided, his final message stated, growth requires risk. Stagnation ensures death. 6 months after the Second Great Exodus, the Galactic Council convened for what many suspected would be the last time. The chamber that had once hosted representatives from 47 species now held delegates from only 19. Entire civilizations had voted to abandon the Milky Way for the promise of something better beyond the rim. Ambassador Vexhai, now serving as the council president, by default, looked out at the half-empty chamber. Her crystalline form had dulled with age and stress, no longer refracting light into the beautiful patterns of her youth. The holographic displays showed a galaxy in rapid decline, trade routes collapsing, colonies going dark, and the first signs of system-wide infrastructure failures. The latest reports from our remaining deep space monitoring stations are grim, she announced to the sparse assembly. Without the human network, we've lost track of 3 different asteroid-based threats. The Crimson Raiders have reformed and are operating with impunity in the outer systems. Our response times to emergencies have increased by 400%. Council member Zorth, one of the few original members still present, had withered significantly since the departures began. His granite-like skin showed stress fractures that hadn't been there a year earlier. We've received another transmission from the New Humanity Collective, he rumbled. They're extending the invitation one final time. Any who wish to leave may do so. But after this, the door closes permanently. The chamber erupted in that passed for heated debate among the remaining species. Some delegates argued for maintaining dignity and independence. Others pointed to the increasingly obvious signs that their civilization was failing without the innovation and mediation that humanity had provided. Dr. Sarah Vasquez, still conducting her research on the few remaining human installations, had chosen to stay behind to document the galaxy's decline. Her latest report was sobering. The Nanomachini network has been completely deactivated. We are now truly alone. More concerning, our preliminary scans of deep space show energy signatures consistent with large-scale megastructural engineering in at least 3 other galaxies. Humanity isn't just building one new civilization, they're building a network of them. Ambassador Vexhai stood in her private quarters aboard the Altarian flagship, staring out at the stars through her viewport. In her hands, she held a data pad containing the coordinates for the final rendezvous point. The invitation was clear: join the new humanity collective and be part of something unprecedented, or remain in a galaxy that was slowly dying. Her communication system chimed with an incoming message. The face that appeared wasn't Director Kim or Admiral Rodriguez, but Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human scientist who had remained behind. Ambassador, Vasquez said, her expression tired but determined. I wanted to reach out to you personally before the final deadline. I've been studying the data transmissions from the new humanity collective, analyzing their technological achievements and social structures. What they've built ... It's beyond anything we ever imagined possible in the Milky Way. Vexhai activated her response system. Dr. Vasquez, surely you understand our position. To abandon our home galaxy feels like admitting defeat. Vasquez smiled sadly. Ambassador, I've spent my career studying life in all its forms. One thing I've learned is that sometimes a species has to migrate to survive. The Milky Way ain't dying because humanity left its dying because we created a system that punished innovation and rewarded stagnation. Humanity was just the catalyst that revealed our fundamental weakness. The transmission shifted to show images from Vasquez's research. Colony after colony showing signs of decline, species reverting to isolationist policies, and technological progress grinding to a halt. The truth is, Ambassador, the Milky Way had already chosen its path long before humanity arrived. We just got comfortable having them solve our problems for us. On the final day before the deadline, as ships from across the galaxy made their last journey to the rendezvous points, one final transmission reached every remaining communication device in the Milky Way. This time, it wasn't any single human speaking. It was a chorus of voices representing dozens of species, all of them former residents of the galaxy now left behind. To our former home, the transmission began. We speak to you one last time, not in judgment, but in hope. What we've found beyond the rim, in just a new home, it's a new way of thinking about what civilization can become. The display showed wonders beyond imagination, worlds where dozens of species had merged their technologies to create solutions impossible alone, ships that traveled between galaxies in weeks rather than millennia, and cities that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that bent reality itself. We've learned that growth requires risk, continued the voice of Admiral Kekstar. Safety requires innovation, and true civilization requires the courage to leave behind what's comfortable for what's possible. Dr. Kellever's voice joined the chorus. The economic models we're seeing now span not just one galaxy, but clusters of galaxies. Resource scarcity is becoming a thing of the past. Conflict resolution happens through cooperation rather than force. It's everything we dreamed the Galactic Council could become, but never had the courage to attempt. The transmission concluded with Director Kim's voice. This is our final goodbye to the Milky Way. The door closes in 12 hours. After that, those who remain will face their future alone, and those who joined us will help build something unprecedented. We hope, someday, that the galaxy we left behind will find its own path to greatness. But that path will have to be your own. Ambassador Vexhai stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers, but this time she was alone. The massive amphitheater that had once buzzed with the voices of 47 species now echoed with only the hum of life support systems. The holographic displays showed the final statistics. 68% of the galaxy's population had chosen to leave. Entire star systems stood empty, their populations having joined the exodus to something greater. The choice had been made. The Milky Way would continue, but it would do so with a greatly reduced population, limited technology, and the knowledge that they had chosen comfort over growth, safety over potential. In her final log entry as Council President, Vexhai recorded her thoughts. We believed that by restricting humanity's expansion, we were protecting our galaxy from an aggressive species. Instead, we were protecting ourselves from the discomfort of rapid change. We chose the safety of stagnation over the risk of evolution. History will judge whether we were wise or simply afraid. As she sealed the council chambers for what would likely be the final time, Vex-High couldn't help but wonder what marvels were being created in the space between galaxies, built by the species that had been brave enough to leave everything behind for the promise of something greater. The Milky Way turned in its ancient patterns, now far quieter than it had been in centuries. In the space between the stars, the last of humanity's nanomachines powered down, their final gift to their former home complete. The galaxy they left behind would have to find its own way forward, carrying the knowledge that sometimes the greatest tragedy in being conquered by a superior force that's being abandoned by those who once considered you worth protecting. And, in the vast darkness between galaxies, humanity and their new allies continued building something unprecedented, a civilization based not on the fear of what might be lost, but on the excitement of what might be gained.